84% of websites are failing one of the basic accessibility rules. And no, this is not because of some complex ARIA issue. It is not even a screen reader bug. It is text. Yes, text that people cannot read. Your button labels, form fields, error messages, navigation links, and secondary text. The most basic part of your website. And still, as per the 2026 WebAIM report, low contrast text was found on almost 84% of home pages. That makes it the most commonly detected accessibility issue on the web. Think about it. In 2026, we are building AI-powered apps, advanced design systems, modern SaaS products, but we are still failing to make text readable. That should bother every designer, every developer, and every accessibility tester watching this video. Why? Because low contrast is not just a color issue, it is a usability issue, it is a trust issue. And sometimes it is the difference between someone buying your product and giving up. Imagine someone trying to fill out an insurance form on their phone. The page loads, the design looks modern with a wide background and a soft gray text with thin labels. Everything looks beautiful in a designed review, but the real users cannot read the helper text under the form field. They make a wild guess for date format and they submit. But then an error message appears, which is also using a softer red color on a white background. So now they miss that again too, and then they try again. Another message appears. Again, they do not understand what went wrong. And eventually, they leave. Not because they are bad with technology, but because your website made reading difficult. And when reading becomes difficult, every task becomes harder. Low contrast does not break loudly. It quietly makes people leave. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 things. First, why low contrast keeps happening even in modern design systems. Second, how designers, developers, and testers can find and fix low contrast before it becomes a repeated system-wide failure. And third, share 5 most common accessibility mistakes that you might be making even today. The goal is not to just make text darker. The goal is to make accessibility predictable, repeatable, and built-in. Now, before we talk about why this keeps happening, let's quickly understand the actual WCAG requirement behind this issue. In simple words, success criteria 143 contrast minimum says text and images of text must have enough contrast against the background so people can actually read them. For WCAG level AA, the expected contrast ratios for normal text must be at least 4.5:1. Large text must be at least 3:1. Large text usually means 18 points regular text, which is roughly 24 CSS pixels, or 14-point bold text, equivalent to 18.5 CSS pixels plus bold. So if you have body text, labels, instructions, you should be thinking, does this meet 4.5:1 or not? But there are few exceptions. Logos do not have to meet this contrast requirement. However, I have rarely seen any logo which is below 3:1 because companies take pride in clear brand recognition. Secondly, decorative text does not have to be at 4.5:1. Common examples would be repeated background text on a page. Third, disabled controls can be treated differently. But this is where teams make the mistake. They hear exceptions and think contrast is flexible everywhere. It does not. If the text helps users understand, decide, and take action, that text needs to be readable. And who does this impact? Yes, people with low vision, but not only them. It impacts older adults, people using phones in bright sunlight, people with tired eyes, people using low quality monitors, people with color vision deficiencies, and people with cognitive load. So this is not a niche accessibility rule. This is about basic readability. Success criteria 143 is not asking you to make your design ugly. It is asking you to stop making users work hard just to read. And here's why many teams misunderstand contrast. A color combination can technically pass and still feel difficult depending on size, font weight, spacing, background, and real world context. Passing the contrast ratio does not make your design exceptional. It means you met the minimum entry fee. The real question is, can users read it comfortably? Let's understand why we end up with color contrast issues. A designer creates a beautiful screen. The brand colors look polished. The secondary text feels subtle. The placeholder text looks elegant. The whole interface feels premium. Then the developer builds that experience exactly the way it was designed. Same color, same font weight, same component state. But then QA runs the accessibility scan. The tool flags low contrast. A ticket gets created and suddenly everyone is debating. Design says, but this is our brand color. Developer says, I use the design file. Tester says, it fails WCAG contrast minimum requirements. And your product says, is this really a blocker? I firmly believe designers are the true enablers of accessibility. You have to adopt the shift left approach to identify and modify the accessibility issues as early as possible in the design systems. So if you're a designer watching this video, most of the contrast issues start before a developer writes a single line of code. Light gray text may look elegant, thin fonts may look modern, muted colors may feel premium, but your users are not viewing your designs in a perfect Figma file. They are on old phones, in sunlight, or at night, with tired eyes, with low vision. So rather than asking, does this look good? Ask, can people read this when conditions are not perfect? Because if your design only works for a perfect screen, in a perfect lighting, for someone with perfect vision, it is not modern. It is fragile. Remember, readability is not the enemy of beauty. Readability is part of beauty. And if you are a developer watching this video, I feel for you. Because I have been there and saying that this is what design gave me. And most of the time, that is the truth. But once a bad color token enters your code base, it can break accessibility across the application. Because one weak token can become hundreds of low contrast issues. So during design handoffs, do not ask, what color should I use? Ask, is this readable on this background? What happens on hover or focus state? What happens in case of errors? And if you are a tester watching this video, this is where you level up. A normal tester writes a low contrast issue is identified. That is still correct, but it is weak. An exceptional tester writes, this error message has low contrast, so users may not understand why the form failed. That creates urgency because teams do not prioritize ratios, they prioritize risk, user harm, broken flows. So do not just report the number, report the consequence. Now, you might be wondering and asking yourself, isn't finding color contrast simple enough? Yes, it is. But low contrast does not appear in big headlines. The headline is often dark. The main paragraph is often fine. The primary button might even pass. The real problems usually hide in the smaller details. Helper text under the form fields. Placeholder text pretending to be the label. Error messages. Inline validation. This is why a quick visual scan is not enough. You have to look where users depend on information, especially when something goes wrong. Low contrast loves hiding in the exact places user needs clarity the most. Look at this simple sign-up form. At first glance, it looks clean. Name, email, password, and create account button. Everything looks simple, but now look closer. The helper text under the password is lighter. The error message is in soft red color. The link that says terms and condition is blue, but too light on the white background. This is how low contrast works. It does not scream, it whispers. Now, let's test it. Open your accessibility tools, run xDevTools. The tool flags contrast issues. Good, but do not stop there because automated tools have limits. They may not fully understand text over complex images. They miss dynamic states. They may not evaluate every interaction state. So now, check manually. Check hover, focus, active and selected states. Never stop your testing at the static page. Test the entire experience as a real user would. Now let's switch gears and focus on how to find issues earlier. At design state, check contrast ratios before design handoffs. Do not only test body text, check labels, helper text, error messages, buttons, links, disabled state, and text over images. Use Figma plugins to detect issues while designing, or use color contrast analyzer for surety. During development, test contrast in the browser. Opacity, hover, and focus can all impact readability. Check the actual rendered color, not just the design token. Use xDevTools that flags issues quickly. During testing, use automated tools like X and ND. But do not stop there. Manually check key flows like sign up, checkout, and login. Now is the right time to talk about the mistakes that keep creating low contrast. Comment which one you have seen the most. Mistake 1. Using placeholder text as a label. Placeholder text is often lighter. It disappears when user starts typing. It creates a memory load, and many teams style it like a secondary text. A placeholder is not a replacement for a visible label. Mistake 2. Making disabled controls almost invisible. Yes, inactive controls have exceptions in WCAG, but that does not mean you should make them impossible to understand. Users still need to know what exists, what is unavailable, and most of the time why it is unavailable. Mistake 3. Putting text on images without a reliable overlay. White text may pass on dark side of the image and completely fail on the lighter side. If your team changes the image, the contrast changes. If the responsive layout changes, the contrast changes. Mistake 4. Assuming brand colors are accessible. Brand colors are not automatically safe for text. A brand blue might work beautifully as a background, but fail as small text. A brand orange might look energetic, but fail on white. A soft green might look friendly, but disappear in status messages. Mistake 5. Treating automated tools as the only source of truth. Tools are essential, but they are not the whole experience. xDevTools and ND only scans the static page. For any dynamic changes happening, such as displaying an error message, needs those tools to be rerun to capture the contrast ratios. Having said that, paid tools do offer those capabilities that allows you to scan the entire page as a real user would, so that you are scanning the experience, not just the static web page. But remember, a tool can detect a failure, but only a human can fully understand the friction. This is why low contrast is such a powerful accessibility issue, because it looks small, but it reveals how the team really works. If contrast is always caught at the end, accessibility is still reactive. If contrast is debated every sprint, your design system is not mature enough. If every team makes its own color decisions, your governance is missing. This is not just about making text darker. That is why having a shift left accessibility approach is the must. Not waiting for an accessibility audit and not waiting for any complaint from real users, but building the decisions into the system. So the next time someone says it's just a low contrast, push back. Because low contrast can hide the instructions. Low contrast can hide the next step. And when the next step is hidden, the user is not failing. The product is failing the user. If this video added value, hit that like button, so more designers, developers, and testers can understand why this issue matters. Comment contrast if you have seen color contrast issues in your application. And share this video with one person on your team. who still thinks accessibility starts at the end of the sprint. This is Param Singh signing off.